Well, we just want to welcome everybody to this episode. This is going to be a great episode for you to be tuning into. Joining me today, I have Sheriff Robert Udell from the Yakima County Sheriff's Department and Vicky Baker from YV-COG. And so thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
So I just want to get right into it because I'm excited about the project that you guys have put together. And so, for people that are watching, we're wondering, what is this crime center going to be and so on. And so that's what we're going to tackle here today. So the first question I got for you guys is, what is YV-COG, number one? We get asked that a lot. And why is it the organization best to run the local crime lab?
Okay, well, I can answer that one, I think. YV-COG, Yakima Valley Conference of Governments, is an organization that was formed in the 60s. And it was 14 cities and Yakima County together. As a group, they agreed to form a local government that can work across jurisdictional lines. They can save money by sharing an employee, for example. Okay. So it's a way to be efficient, especially for smaller cities, and to look at things from a regional lens and solve bigger problems as a team.
Sheriff, are you excited about YV-COG running this?
Oh, absolutely. You know, when it became obvious when this idea came up, and it's such a great idea, I wish I had come up with it, but it was YV-COG. Chris Wickenhagen and Vicky came to my office and said, hey, why don't we work together to provide these resources that really none of you have? And they sat me down like it was going to be a tough sale. And it was within like 5 minutes, I'm going, no, I'm in, let's do this. Right. But the way to make this work is to get everybody at the table. And the only way to do that is to have an independent organization running it. And we don't possess that within our law enforcement world. We kind of have our own little spheres. Right. But YV-COG brought that independent admin portion to the table. An organization that already reaches out to all of the municipalities across the county, and thus the framework for a project like this.
What's nice about the organization too is that it has a board that has one representative from every city, and it's a place where it's equalized. Yes. So the county and the city of Yakima are very large organizations, big business, but they have an equal voice with the smallest. So Hera and Mabton actually have a voice that's equal. Yeah, and it's a great place for collaboration to take place.
And I've done some research, and Sheriff, maybe you know this one, but don't the courts want it to be run by a third party as well? Yeah,
absolutely. Independence is just sweeping the whole country when it comes to crime lab and those type of investigations. And here's a good example. Let's say that the crime lab is run by me, exclusively by me. It's in my agency, my employees, my detectives, my patrol officers. So you could take a crime right from patrol guy right to the detectives, and then the evidence is run by my people, and then we get to court. And if I'm a defense attorney, I'm going to say, well, Sheriff, all your people came up with the same thing. Of course they are.
Right.
They're your people.
That's right.
It's slanted, and we need to avoid that.
No, I think it's well thought out. So let's get right to it. What is this crime lab going to do?
Okay, well, we have received $2.8 million to buy a lot of equipment. So we'll be able to have a NIBIN machine, which is the bones of this, the backbone, which is a ballistic program. It's a machine that you can put a bullet casing in, and it's like a fingerprint. It will link a crime gun to many different crimes. That's one piece of equipment. We're purchasing software that will link together all of our cities for the first time and be able to have crime mapping and some actual data sharing and collaboration as far as seeing what's happening in all the different cities and the county. And we'll have for a computer forensics program, which is really exciting to a lot of our cities. I'm a little concerned at how excited they are. They're going to be very busy people doing that work because, what would you say about cell phones and criminals?
Oh, we all have cell phones, right? And so do criminals. And when they're out doing things they shouldn't be doing, they have cell phones on them, and they become a source of amazing amount of evidence.
That's right.
And almost any case, you would have probable cause. You would have a reason to get into that cell phone to see what they were up to before, during, and after a crime. But our resources to do that are so limited. I have one guy that's trained in a certain aspect of it. Sunnyside has somebody, and that's it. Right. Nobody else in this county. So the only way the rest of the agencies can have cell phone work done is they have to send them out to a private lab. That's expensive. And so when it comes down to it, maybe we just won't. Maybe we'll just pass on that. And often valuable evidence then isn't even looked at. This gives us the opportunity to have somebody in our region, in our county, that is keyed up and doing them for all of us, all cell phones. Computers used to be the big deal. But now, right, the cell
phones are
phone.
more- yeah.
The cell phone's in your pockets. It is everybody's computer.
What's nice too is that when detectives are working up a case, we can layer all these things.
Right.
So if it's a firearms case, we'll be able to run through the ballistics program, but we'll also be able to, and that'll be quick for the first time. We'll get quick turnaround, but we'll be able to go to the cameras and the cell phones and be able to, wrap around the information for the first time instead of just waiting, for the leads that might come out later from the
I
crime
think
lab.
it's important to note with this crime lab is while there will be evidence processing equipment like the NIBIN, which is fantastic, because one gun can be used in a lot of different crimes by different people.
That's
So
right.
tracking where it goes is important to us. The computer forensics, the mapping, so we're not just driving around wasting $5 gas. We know where we need to be. I mean, that's really important. But it's the analyst. Right now, only the city of Sunnyside and the city of Yakima have analysts to varying degrees. None of the rest of us do. And no one shares information. Zero. Now, the deputy and the patrol officers on the ground, they do a good job of sending emails to each other and phone calls when they're working, but there's no collaborative effort where we all truly pool our information. This is going to finally happen. This is going to be so cool because the people who make bad choices have cars and they drive up and down our valley and they commit crimes and bad choices everywhere.
Right.
Not just in one city. They don't say, oh, geez, I'm in the county now. I've left the city of Yakima. I better turn around and go back.
Right.
Oh, no. They just keep going and doing things they shouldn't.
Right.
Yeah, and the nice thing too about this is it's going to come straight out of 911 into a map. So we'll be able to see for the first time a map of our region and see where the locations are in the hot spots. And it'll really be able to help direct patrols and save a lot of taxpayer money.
You bet. The software becomes predictive as well, so it knows where we need to be.
How cool is that?
Yeah, and right now, we are totally reactive. Every agency in this county is just reactive. We only go after something. The only way we're going to make a true difference in crime is if we get to the point where we can be in front of it, knowing who we have to go after and taking those people out of our society. We become first names with the people that make all the bad choices. They know us. We know them, but we also get busy doing things, and those people, both guys and gals, can continue to keep making those bad choices that hurt people while we're doing other things, from barking calls to cold burglaries to car wrecks, all these things we do during the day. Finally, we're going to have people saying, yeah, but you need to focus over here.
Right.
Don't forget this guy right here.
Right.
And that's when we truly start seeing crimes drop, when we pluck those people out.
Well, your PROACT team too.
Yes.
Being able to have intelligence driven, which is what, having that information lead a proactive team of people, which he's going to be able to put
That's
together.
right. Because of this crime lab, we know there's going to be a lot more information for us to follow up on. There's going to be a lot of stuff out there, things that maybe anecdotally we knew, but now it's going to be hard numbers. There's going to be arrows directed right at certain issues. I'm too short, man. There's not enough deputies, there's not enough officers to go out and really be proactive. And so with ARPA money, the commissioners have given us 5 deputies to form a proactive team. We're in the process of standing that up right now, hiring more guys and gals to do that. But that team will be taking information from the crime lab and from detectives around the county and going after the hot spots. Those problems that patrol just doesn't have the time to deal with.
How cool is that? It's been a while since I was in law enforcement, but one of the things that I think's kind of appealing about this is, at least when I was in law enforcement, there was a single crime lab, and it was controlled by the state. So you got your place in line wherever that was, right, and so on. And so, how is your crime lab going to be different than the state crime lab in terms of that?
We're going to be like a small version of the crime lab. The crime lab is not going to go away at the state level. I
Yeah.
mean, they do a great job. They have a lot of services that we're not going to try to take over. But what we are going to be doing is having services that are locally controlled and very adapted to our needs. Right now, if my detectives send stuff up to the crime lab, they fill out a form, they put it in a box, and it gets FedExed up to Spokane or the Tri-Cities or Seattle, and then it's gone. Months, even years later, if it's DNA, we'll get results. With a local crime lab, if we have a violent crime, that's the priority immediately. Any agencies can go right to the crime lab, through the analysts, a rapid DNA hits machine. All these things can be utilized immediately. Not months or years,
Right.
but right now to go after local problems with local people.
And the thing about that too is, again, that speed you're talking about. My memory is terrible, Mike. I don't know about you, but if somebody comes to me and says, last year on a Wednesday, do you remember? And witnesses, that's cold information. Nobody's going to remember. The cameras are great when you go straight to them, but a year later, people don't have camera footage. But if we're quick, we can get really hot leads for these guys. And that's
Right
one
away.
of the benefits
Yeah,
too.
and get cases moving and get them to the prosecutor much faster than they are right now. That's why the prosecutor loves this idea as well, is that he's not going to have cases pending for months or years. Instead, we should be able to resolve them. Either way, and that's important. We need to be able to move on quickly. Ultimately, a lot of the evidence that we develop will have to be peer-reviewed, that second check that the courts require, and that's what the state crime lab will be for as well. We're not going to do blood work, we're not going to do drugs, that kind of thing. They will always have a place in the system. Their facilities are pretty impressive. They really are.
Sure.
Perhaps back when you were in law enforcement, you had the opportunity to go to a crime lab. Really what we're looking for is a much smaller, more adaptable group that can flex with what we need with the
Cool.
real important stuff.
Very cool. So that moves me on to this. Why is having local control so important for this program to succeed?
That's a tough one, because I think the West Side typically gets the love. I may be biased, and I always stand up for our valley. I feel like, if we really want to tackle our problems, and we have specific problems here, we have to control all aspects of that. Our people are really relying on those resources that the state
Right.
provides, and it doesn't allow us to really be nimble and flexible like we will be able to. And I think that's really important for our valley, for the people, for safety, to really be able to tackle our problems
Absolutely.
without worrying
You
about
bet.
what
Our
the
local
state's
concerns.
priorities.
And local
Yeah.
control. Right now, we have no control. Back when I was a detective, I would call and I would try to form relationships with the scientists at the crime labs. That would help, and I could move some cases forward, but the majority still was at their whim. They have their own priorities. Understood, right? They have the whole state to look at.
Right.
But we're concerned about here. And if we can take some of that information and develop it locally, have control over it when we have a major crime, and we immediately move on it, that's huge, Mike. I mean, that is something we have never done here, and it's pretty exciting.
Well, and it's exciting if you're a little jurisdiction, or if you're a citizen out there living in, Hera, or one of the smaller towns that maybe has a very tiny force, and there's a major crime there. We're going to surround them just like we do the big cities, right? I mean, everybody's going to have an excellent top-level service for the first time here.
Right.
Which is going to impact those cases too. And the victims deserve, and we all watch CSI, don't we just assume all those things are happening? And they really aren't, and so if you're a crime victim, you're like, wait, what? There's no CSI, what?
Right.
So, we're making an effort to kind of be a little more CSI.
Yeah. The DNA, we're going to get a DNA machine, and it won't be full use. It's not going to be like you'd see in a CSI lab, but it's going to give us direction. And that's going to be really important, because right now, let's say if your house gets burglarized and the suspect leaves behind a little bit of DNA, which in today's world, you leave DNA everywhere you go. Back, remember when you and I were young guys, to get DNA, sometimes it seemed like you'd have to have a bottle full of blood to get DNA.
Right.
Not anymore. A fingerprint leaves DNA.
That's right.
But if it's a property crime, the state crime lab doesn't have the resources to touch it. But we can look at it. And for the first time ever in our county, even across the state, we can start to address property crimes. And the same people that do property crimes do a lot of the violent crimes too. And so it's just a much better effort. I think across the county, people will be excited to realize that when the deputies come out or the officers come out to their house, we will be able to do more for that burglary, because those are personal crimes as well.
Sure.
And I've been burglarized before, and even to well, nothing's going to happen, and I'm a cop and I know nothing's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And now something is going to happen.
That's so cool. So the 2.8 million that was given, what's that buy? What's that giving us?
So it was about 1.2 million in equipment.
Okay.
So that's all of those high level, goodies that will really make a difference. The rest is going to fund the staff, and I think Bob would say probably that the staff is the most important part. I mean, I could buy a really fancy machine and I could put it on the shelf, but nobody knows how to use it. Nobody knows how to put it together into a case. It's not going to be meaningful. So the staff part will be about 6 years of funding with the partnership of all of our cities that are participating. They have a match in that. And then for us going forward, we're going to be looking for grant money. We're looking for legislative support. We've had some good conversations so far, and I think there's a lot of money to be had out there. This is a prototype, and government doesn't generally, look at new and different. They kind of just throw money at things that they continue doing the same thing. This is new, and so when we're proposing a prototype that will be actually a game-changing thing and will make a difference in the valley, we're getting a lot of attention along those lines, and so I think we'll get a lot of support with funding. I am not so worried about the startup cost. I think it'll be a sustainable, funded, long-term
I'm
project.
sure it will.
Yeah.
We've talked. We've had a lot of questions about this, and I think it's great that people ask questions because we want to have the best program possible. So when people are asking the hard questions, right on, because we want it to succeed. But Vicky's right. The people are the most important part. We've had guys and gals trained in some of these forensic programs. The training is brutal. It's technical. It can take weeks or even a month. The detectives will come back from that training stunned, right? But if they don't use it all the time, they lose it.
Right.
And with analysts full-time that are trained on it, that do it every day, they become more effective. The results are faster. It's just a better product. It's the people that I think are just wonderful.
Well, it's a cutting edge thing too, because you might imagine, and as you know, if you get the new cell phone, it comes out every year.
Right.
So technology is changing rapidly,
Sure.
and so these people are going to have to be constantly trained and to be kept up to the current technology level. And then they're also going to learn how to do a lot of the other associated support stuff that his detectives will save time. You don't have to dig into all those records and things like that they can help put together that picture.
Yeah. You got to have the right people doing the right thing. And detectives, like anybody else, we like to have information given to us, all tied up. Don't want to have to dig too much for it because the guys and gals that are doing that kind of work across this county are very busy, extremely busy. So if they dig into a case and they realize, well, maybe that nugget's in there, but I could spend hours looking for it, but I can tie this one up right away.
Right.
The low-hanging fruit always gets all the attention. This is going to make a lot of cases low-hanging fruit. And these cases, through the analysts, are going to basically, here it is, detective, this is who you need to go after.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about 14 people. Here's the person. And that is going to be just, for us, a completely new way of doing business.
Right. So it'll be, here's the person to go after, and here's the evidence to back that up. Right?
Yes.
Because I think that's part of the deal, Sheriff, that I've heard is people are concerned about people being targeted, unjustly. But what I hear you saying is that we're going to be going after people, but we're going to have the evidence in hand to go after them.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And a lot of times, and you know how this works, Mike. When you start into a crime, it's kind of like TV. You might have several suspects.
That's right.
And then you got to start working on all of these people to determine who did it, without the benefit of CSI. But with the rapid hits DNA machine, people can volunteer DNA and clear themselves.
Correct.
And suddenly all these people that we might have had to go talk to and talk to witnesses, verify alibis, we know in 30 minutes, oh no, you're not involved. Thank you so much for helping us out. And we move on to the people that matter.
How cool that is, because I think back to some cases that I had where you knew the person didn't do it, but you had to submit to the crime lab. At least in my day, that was months. And in some of the communities, you're guilty just because.
Right.
Right? I think the ability to clear people, I think that's huge.
It really is. It's a kind of like a foundational for our business. is making sure that innocent people are not charged.
Right.
And this gives us tools to get those people out of the spotlight just as soon as we can.
Okay. So what I've been following, and maybe I'm missing something, is, it didn't sound like all the cities were 100% on board with this. It sounded like the city of Yakima had some concerns with their own team and stuff like that. So where are they at now on that process?
We haven't received a formal answer from them yet, so I know their council has yet to vote and weigh in on this issue. But I know that the sheriff's had conversation, and we've heard from the city that they do have their own analyst. And so, I think that they have a vision that may be a little bit different. I don't know if you have any thoughts on, I think long term they'll probably change their mind when they see what this is. It's kind of like the vision is there, but they need to see it maybe before they understand really what it's going to do for their people.
Okay.
And I think our valley is so connected, it's going to be difficult if everyone else is participating and crime is being squeezed in every other jurisdiction, and then the Yakima is on their own.
Yeah.
So, but I have no prediction on, what short term that looks like. I think long term it just makes sense to work together.
Yeah, I think long term it is. I think the goal of this effort is to draw people in. They do such a good job that they want to be. Right now, Yakima has, I think, a couple analysts. I'm not sure. I really don't know what they do. But they're the biggest agency in the county, and I think that their vision is that they have a significant say over how things work. I get that. Absolutely. We're the next biggest agency, and it'd be easy for me to look at this lab and say, maybe I should just be in charge of all of it, right? If I'm going to submit a lot of cases compared to some of these smaller agencies, I should be in charge. Very human, right? It's some places that even it's the way it works. But here we have a lot of agencies, from small to really medium. Yakima's not, in the big scheme of things, we don't have any large agencies here. We need to work together, and we need to have a governance model that draws everybody to the table. Not just the city of Yakima and Yakima County being in charge, but everybody having a say. And that is where it starts to sing.
Yeah.
So I just want to say this about that. I think I was very impressed with the sheriff's approach, because I know a lot of sheriffs across the nation probably would be wanting to have control of this and wouldn't be so willing to sit at a table with 14 other jurisdictions and have an equal vote with the smallest city.
Yeah, that's right.
That says a lot about him, that this is important to him to collaborate. And I just want to give you a shout out, because it's been leadership from him that really has helped this come together too. So great job, Sheriff.
Thanks, Vicky. I appreciate that. But what is my goal as sheriff is to drop crime across the county. Ultimately, everyone gets to vote for the sheriff. The sheriff is the last guy or gal on the line of making crime go away, and it just seems common sense we all work together and drop our titles and our goals at the door about what works best for individual agencies, because what works for everybody. And I've told city councils, I've gone to them and said, I'm not here to assert control or take anything away. I want every single agency that joins the crime lab to get more for what they're putting in, so that the payback, right, the results are much greater than what they might pay in. And I think that's going to be absolutely true. I know it's true for my agency. I think it's going to be true for everybody. Working together, combining resources, we have a much more powerful presence in the county.
Agree.
And that's the thing. So when you talk about it that way and you think about it, some of these little cities, their costs are, $1,000 a year or a couple thousand. Some of them are maybe $10,000 a year for, like Toppenish, 12, whatever. But it's very affordable when you think about the cost of one person, one officer is expensive. And so it is a cost sharing thing as well, and it's good for the taxpayers.
Right.
And we could duplicate and everybody had the same level of service. It would be very, very expensive.
It would be.
And we wouldn't have collaboration.
Right.
But this way, it's just good for the taxpayers too.
Over the years, we've had lots of meetings where many of the agencies will come together and we sit around the table with our water bottles and we talk about the need to collaborate. We got to get together. We got to share gang information. We got to do this. Absolutely, let's do it. And then we all leave and nothing happens.
Right.
Why? Because there's no organization. There's no pivot point. there's no place for all of us to share information to anyone that can make sure that it all gets disseminated to where it needs to go. And we're going to do that. Finally.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So one agency I haven't heard you guys talk about is Yakima Nation. And I know, Sheriff, you work really hard to work with the nation and help them with that and so on. Where are they at with this crime lab, crime center, criminal analysis stuff?
They are interested.
Good.
They are, yeah. There'll be some more conversations with the tribe to see what they would like to see, at what level they like to participate in. But they are interested because they have, like other places, everywhere has specific issues that they would like to see better addressed. And a local crime lab may be able to do that for them. We'll see what they want and where they want to go. But right now, there's interest. And that's very, very cool.
What are some of those things that you just want the citizens to know about this?
I think it's a game changer from everything I've heard. So this was born out of listening. You know, in January we met with the law enforcement in the region and we asked them, you know, what are the gaps? What do you need? And just listened to what they needed and then developed it. I think that's the key though, is that, you know, we're not developing this just from nowhere and trying to sell it to people. This is something that they all identified as something they needed to have and support. And so I think it's going to be, I believe it's transformational. I've heard that from a lot of the agencies, that this is just a new way of doing things. And it's new across the state too. I know you've talked to other regions who are like, what?
I've had a couple other sheriffs say, hey, can we send stuff to you guys to process? You know, because there is that backlog. But Vicky said it well. You know, we're a county that's known for a lot of things. Apples. We have some of the biggest dairy farms in the nation right here. People don't know that. Our wines, all these things that we're known for, we're also known for crime.
Right.
And that is so unfortunate. And it is time that we do something to get that perception tamped down. And this is it. Working together. It's fantastic. And if I got in the last couple seconds, Vicky and I gave a presentation at the Zilla. I didn't get my words right. Zilla City Council and the police chief. They asked him, "Well, Chief, what do you think about this?" Well, you know, this looks good, and this, that sounds pretty good too. He said, "But I'm going to tell you what I really like about this." He said, "For the very first time, we're being asked to have a seat at the table." And that's the bottom line for this. It's local. It's not outside this county. It's us taking care of our own problems.
Yeah, and I think, Sheriff, you hit it right on the head. I think people that are committing crimes in the big city, as we call it here, if I was a criminal, I wouldn't live in Yakima and commit crimes in Yakima. I'd come from Zilla, Mapton, wherever, right? Less law enforcement, less all this stuff. What I really like about this is, one, I think this is absolutely, you're creating something that other people will follow. I know in my time in law enforcement, I would have loved to have something like this. I was part of a proactive team and we didn't have anything like this at all. So we kind of had to go off the old street leads, right? And we both know where that takes you sometimes. So, you know, what I love is that cops are going to be able to talk to cops and be able to collaborate and share information about, you know, because I know in the towns I worked, we'd have, you know, the big city cops come looking for somebody in our town. And we'd be, that's not who you're looking for. You're looking for this. I think that piece, that communication piece, is huge for you guys going forward. I commend you both, and I agree with you, Vicky. In the county I worked, the sheriff exerted authority. He was in charge of all of us, chiefs and captains and all this stuff. But I think we've got the right guy sitting in the right seat to pull this off.
Yep.
And so I applaud you and your organization for taking it and getting this happen. But Sheriff, I applaud you as well. I know you're severely understaffed, and we got to work on fixing that too. But,
right on. Thanks, Mike.
But you guys have done a great thing, and I think Yakima is going to be forever changed because of your guys' efforts. So thank you for coming in today. Thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you for having us.
And we hope that you've enjoyed this episode. Again, be praying for our law enforcement folks as they're out there every day. And thank you for watching.